Hajime thought living next to a gorgeous older woman would be peaceful. But he had no idea that every time she drinks, she turns into a walking disaster, dragging him into the most embarrassing nights of his life. The story begins as our MC Hajime hands a small gift to the elderly landlady of his new apartment. Smiling politely, he introduces himself. "My name is Hajime. Here's a little souvenir, along with some vegetables from our family garden." The old lady happily accepts the gift and thanks him. Looking at the fresh vegetables, she can't help but wonder how he managed to get them when the local stores have such long lines. Hajime simply smiles and replies that it wasn't a big deal. As they're chatting, a car suddenly pulls up nearby. A beautiful young woman quickly steps out and apologizes for arriving late. The old lady warmly tells her not to worry about it. The young woman politely bows before saying she's going to the main office after taking a short rest. The moment Hajime sees her, he freezes. She has the face of a model and a figure so stunning that she looks like someone straight out of television. Noticing her, the landlady smiles and says, "You've been busy lately, Asami-chan." Asami casually replies that she hasn't been that busy before asking if the new tenant is finally here. The old lady nods before introducing her. "This is my niece, Asami. Starting today, she'll be living right next door to you." Then she turns toward Asami. "And this is Hajime, a new college student." Hajime politely greets her. "It's nice to meet you." The moment he learns that such a beautiful woman is going to be his next-door neighbor, he's completely speechless. To welcome the landlady, Hajime also gives her some tomatoes from his family's farm. During their conversation, Asami casually mentions that she works at the famous Karuki store. A few days later, Hajime heads to his university for the very first time. The campus is much bigger and more stylish than he expected, making him even more excited about college life. When he reaches his locker, he notices a package waiting for him. At first, he thinks it's another letter from his mother. After opening it, he realizes his parents have sent him more tomatoes from their family farm. Looking at them, Hajime smiles to himself. Everything seems to be going well. His college is full of friendly people. And even the woman living next door is beautiful, mature, and kind. On his way home, Hajime can't stop thinking about Asami. Completely distracted while carrying the bag of tomatoes, he suddenly notices someone collapsed on the ground. He immediately rushes over. To his surprise, it's Asami. He suddenly remembers that she's the manager of a very popular Western-style convenience store. Realizing someone so successful lives right next door leaves him even more surprised. At the same time, he remembers the landlady's words. "The rent is only 30,000 yen. Stay as long as you like." Now he finally understands why. Hajime quickly kneels beside her. "Asami, are you all right?" The strong smell of alcohol immediately hits him. She had apparently gotten drunk before coming home and was completely soaked from the rain. Unable to leave her outside like this, Hajime gently tries to wake her. "Please wake up. At least go sleep in your room." Receiving no response, he carefully takes the key from her bag and unlocks the apartment. The moment he steps inside, he's amazed. The room looks incredibly elegant, almost like something straight out of a TV drama. As he helps her inside, a pleasant fragrance fills the room. Just then, Asami suddenly sits upright. Completely defenseless, she stares at Hajime while he awkwardly realizes just how different life in Tokyo really is. Thinking it's best to leave, he quietly says, "I'm going now. Please take a bath after you sober up." But before he can walk away, Asami grabs onto him. "I don't want to take a bath." Then she suddenly asks, "Why do city baths eat people?" Her strange behavior leaves Hajime completely stunned. He awkwardly replies, "Then, at least wipe yourself dry." A few moments later, Asami notices the box he's carrying. She places a hand on his shoulder and asks, "What's inside that box?" She's both angry and on the verge of tears. Hajime calmly answers, "They're greenhouse tomatoes. My mom sent them." The moment she hears the word mom, her expression changes completely. She suddenly shouts, "All men have a mother's complex. I'll show you what I do to your mother's tomatoes." Before Hajime can stop her, she grabs the box. "What are you doing? Don't open it like that." She tries to ruin the tomatoes. But the moment she tastes one, she completely freezes. They're unbelievably delicious. Hajime proudly explains. That's because I've been taking care of them ever since they were just seeds. Asami suddenly falls silent. Noticing the change in her expression, Hajime quietly asks, "What happened, Karuki-san?" Finally, she begins explaining everything. Earlier that day, she had gone out drinking with a man she genuinely liked. He wasn't flashy, and his clothes were pretty plain. But he seemed like a genuinely kind person. She had even bought him a surprise birthday present and decided to visit his apartment. When nobody answered the door, she thought about simply leaving the gift outside. But then she heard strange noises coming from inside. Curious, she slowly opened the door. What she saw completely shattered her expectations. The man was completely naked, happily taking a bath with his mother while saying, "Mom, my feet are still wet." He was already 30 years old. Seeing that scene completely disgusted Asami. I could never be with a man who cares more about his mother than his own wife. Listening quietly, Hajime finally understands why she drank so much. She had gotten heartbroken, wandered home in the rain, and completely lost control. Although he had always admired Asami for her beauty and mature personality, the truth behind her situation turned out to be far more complicated than he expected. He simply couldn't leave her alone. Asami slowly moves closer before placing her hand on Hajime's leg. 4 eyes. Trying to comfort her, Hajime gently smiles. "Don't worry too much. You're beautiful, you're great at your job, and I'm sure you'll find someone much better." The moment those words leave his mouth, he notices her expression suddenly change. Oh no, did I say something wrong? Instead of getting angry, Asami quietly wraps her arms around him. "I don't feel good." Hajime desperately tries to stay calm. Where are your house clothes?" Then he quickly adds, "Asami, don't fall asleep yet." The following morning, Hajime heads outside to throw away the trash. Yawning, Hajime quietly muttered that he was already exhausted after everything that had happened the previous night. Just then, he heard footsteps approaching from behind. As he turned around, he found Asami standing there. With a gentle smile, Hajime said, "You were in pretty rough shape yesterday, but you look like nothing even happened. I'm impressed." The moment she heard those words, Asami froze in shock. Realizing what he had just said, Hajime quickly tried to explain himself. "No, I mean, it's great that you don't seem to have a hangover. You were throwing up a lot, remember? I even cleaned the dirty rug. Was everything okay?" From the look on her face, it was obvious. She didn't remember a single thing. Hajime immediately regretted opening his mouth. Without saying a word, Asami simply turned around and headed off to work. Watching her leave, Hajime could only blame himself, wondering why he just couldn't keep his mouth shut. A few moments later, the old landlady walked over with a warm smile. From the way she looked at him, it was clear she had already guessed that Hajime had taken care of Asami the previous night. She explained that her niece was truly a wonderful girl. However, whenever she got drunk, she became completely hopeless and forgot everything that happened afterward. With a helpless smile, the old lady admitted she was simply too old to keep taking care of her. She also explained that Asami wasn't an easy person to impress. She had a strong sense of responsibility and had always been waiting for a man with strong morals and good character. Finally, the old lady revealed the real reason why the rent was only 30,000 yen. As she walked back toward the apartment, she smiled at Hajime and gently said, "Please take care of my niece, Asami-chan." The next chapter begins with our MC Hajime, standing alone in his small kitchen, looking around the room as he quietly wonders if that's everything he brought with him. Even after moving to the city, he still can't shake off his country habits. As the only son of a farming family, he spent his childhood surrounded by vegetable fields, helping his parents after school and every weekend. Growing vegetables had simply become a part of his life. But no matter how hard he tried to focus on unpacking, his thoughts kept drifting back to Asami. Compared to his simple apartment, her room looked incredibly stylish, complete with a comfortable sofa and a nice bed. The difference between their lifestyles couldn't have been more obvious. As Hajime lay down on his bed, He buried his face in the pillow and couldn't stop replaying everything that had happened the previous night. During the day, Asami always looked calm, mature, and reliable. But after getting drunk, she completely transformed into someone else. The memory left him both embarrassed and confused. He couldn't believe he was becoming so conscious of a woman. Then he remembered the apartment owner's words, asking him to look after Asami whenever she needed help. Even though the apartment rent was unbelievably cheap at only 30,000 yen, Hajime still wasn't sure if he was ready to accept the responsibility that came with it. While he was still thinking about how much she had drunk the night before, the doorbell suddenly rang. Curious, Hajime walked over and opened the door. Standing there was Asami herself. The moment she softly called his name, Hajime froze in surprise. His heart skipped a beat as he realized she was speaking to him so politely. Without wasting another second, Asami lowered her head into a deep bow. She sincerely apologized for all the trouble she had caused the previous night. Hajime looked completely confused. He honestly thought she didn't remember anything. However, Asami explained that after seeing the condition of her room, she had managed to figure out what happened. She then handed him a small gift as an apology. Hajime immediately refused. He insisted that he was the one who had entered her apartment without permission, even if it was only to help her. But Asami simply shook her head. She admitted that a grown woman getting drunk and causing trouble for a college student should never have happened in the first place. She promised him it would never happen again before apologizing one last time. After leaving the gift behind, she quietly returned to her own apartment. Watching her leave, Hajime couldn't help wondering if that meant his job as her caretaker was finally over. Then he looked down at the present she had given him. The thoughtful gift genuinely surprised him. A warm smile slowly appeared on his face as he realized once again just how kind Asami really was. A little while later, after finishing his chores, Hajime headed out to buy dinner. While walking through the convenience store, he noticed a strange piece of paper hanging from the ceiling. His eyes followed it until he spotted Asami nearby. She seemed to be performing some kind of unusual ritual, hanging up a handmade weather doll while quietly wishing for clear skies the next day. Hajime could only stare in confusion. What exactly was she doing? Before he could think any further, Asami suddenly noticed him. She slowly turned around with an unusually serious expression before walking straight toward him. Without warning, she grabbed the front of Hajime's hoodie and pulled him closer. Their faces ended up much closer than Hajime expected, leaving him completely flustered. Seeing his innocent reaction, Asami couldn't hold back her laughter. She teased him like he was an easy target, making Hajime even more embarrassed. Unable to ignore how differently she was acting, Hajime carefully asked if she had been drinking again. The playful smile instantly disappeared. Instead, Asami suddenly burst into tears. She lowered her head and apologized over and over, calling herself a hopeless adult. Then she finally explained what had happened. One of her younger coworkers had told everyone she needed time off because of a family Buddhist memorial service. Feeling sympathetic, Asami agreed to cover all of her shifts. Later, she discovered the truth through social media. There had never been any memorial service. Her coworker had simply lied so she could spend the day with her boyfriend instead. Meanwhile, Asami was now stuck working 7 straight shifts because of that lie. Tears continued running down her face as she poured out everything she had been holding inside. She admitted she wouldn't have been upset if her coworker had simply been honest. She would have gladly supported her. What truly hurt was being lied to. As her emotions poured out, she bitterly questioned why people acted as if marriage and having children were the only things that made a woman successful. She had devoted herself to her career, worked harder than anyone else, and tried to become independent. Yet somehow, society still made women like her feel lonely and incomplete. Hajime quietly listened without interrupting. Then he gently told her that she always worked incredibly hard and that there was nothing uncool about the life she had chosen. His kind words reached her heart. Still crying, Asami confessed what she truly wanted. She wanted to get married someday. She didn't want to spend her life alone. Calling herself lonely and pathetic, she slowly lost the strength to stay awake. A few moments later, she peacefully fell asleep with her head resting on Hajime's lap. Looking down at her sleeping face, Hajime let out a quiet sigh. Once again, he found himself carrying Asami back to her apartment. He had promised himself he wouldn't end up taking care of her again. And yet, Here he was. As he carefully supported her, he became painfully aware of how close they were. Her soft body brushed against him, making Hajime panic inside. He immediately scolded himself, trying not to let his thoughts wander. After gently laying Asami down on her bed, he prepared to leave before staying any longer would only make things more awkward. Just as he turned around, something on the floor caught his attention. It was Asami's employee ID. Picking it up, Hajime noticed her serious photo and quietly read her job title. She was the sales department manager. Seeing that title made him realize once again how capable and respected she really was. At that moment, Asami sleepily murmured his nickname. 4 Eyes. Hajime looked back at her peaceful sleeping face. The confident and dependable woman everyone admired looked completely different while asleep. She seemed innocent, almost childlike. Smiling to himself, Hajime quietly admitted that he probably wasn't suited for the responsibility of taking care of someone like Asami. Even so, as he watched her sleeping peacefully, he couldn't help thinking, maybe alcohol wasn't entirely a bad thing after all. Hajime's new semester is about to begin next week, and during his break, he stops by the bookstore to pick up his textbooks. However, the moment he sees the prices, his expression instantly drops. He never imagined they would cost this much. As he stands there in disbelief, something catches his attention. He pauses for a moment before realizing the person nearby is Asami. Dressed casually in a pair of jeans, she looks completely different from her usual self, making Hajime wonder if she's also enjoying her day off. A few moments later, he notices that Asami is buying books as well. Seeing her struggle with a heavy box, Hajime immediately offers to carry it for her. She apologizes, saying the box is much heavier than it looks, but Hajime simply smiles and tells her it's nothing. After all, this kind of work is actually his specialty. Confused by that answer, Asami asks what he means by specialty. Hajime casually explains that he's a farmer, and the son of a farmer, so lifting heavy things is part of his everyday life. The two continue walking together until Hajime finally asks if it's all right for him to put the box down for a moment. Asami agrees, giving him a chance to catch his breath. As Hajime looks at the large stack, he can't help thinking that Asami must really love reading. In his mind, she seems like the kind of person who spends all her free time with books, and he decides he should follow her example. Inspired by her, Hajime picks up a book himself and starts reading. Unfortunately, it doesn't take long before the peaceful atmosphere makes him sleepy, and he ends up dozing off with the book still in his hands. Suddenly, a familiar voice breaks the silence. 4 Eyes, are you there? Hajime immediately opens his eyes after hearing someone call his nickname. It's Asami, calling to him from the other side of the apartment wall and telling him to come over. Still half asleep, Hajime wonders what she could possibly want. As he listens more carefully, he presses his ear against the wall. On the opposite side, Asami leans closer as well, lowering her voice and urging him to hurry. Her voice echoes through the wall so closely that it almost feels like she's whispering directly into Hajime's ear. He hesitates. The way she's speaking, especially with her thick Kansai accent, makes him realize there's only one explanation. She's drunk again. He figures he should probably check on her before she causes even more trouble. Even then, he finds himself overthinking something as simple as what clothes he should wear before heading over. Standing outside her apartment, Hajime rings the doorbell while quietly admitting that he has a bad feeling about this. The door suddenly opens. Standing there is Asami, wearing a school uniform. With a cheerful smile, she flashes a victory sign and happily greets him as if nothing is unusual. Hajime freezes on the spot. His mind completely stops working as he stares at her in disbelief. He can't understand why she's dressed like that. Asami simply thanks him for coming inside, acting as though everything is perfectly normal. Still wearing the outfit, complete with a cardigan, she casually comments that it's a little tight around her chest before adjusting it with complete confidence. She then looks at Hajime and innocently asks if it isn't attractive enough. Caught completely off guard, Hajime desperately tries not to stare. Embarrassed, he quietly admits that it does look nice, but before he can finish his sentence, Asami notices how unusually quiet he's become. She playfully asks if he's speechless just because she's wearing a short skirt. Flustered, Hajime quickly denies it, although his awkward reaction says otherwise. Trying to change the subject, He finally asks why she's even wearing a school uniform in the first place. Asami casually explains that the last time she got drunk, she completely lost control and ended up buying a huge pile of shoujo manga. Only then does Hajime realize something. The things she bought at the bookstore weren't textbooks at all. They were manga. Laughing at herself, Asami admits she may have gone a little overboard because she bought far more than she intended. Since she had the day off from work, she spent the entire morning drinking while reading manga. Hajime already knows this habit of hers all too well, and judging by her mood, he can tell another one of her unpredictable episodes has already begun. Asami suddenly looks at him and reminds him that he was still in high school when they first became friends. Without taking her eyes off the manga she's reading, she tells Hajime that she wants him to act just like the male lead in the story. Hajime's eyes widen in panic. He immediately refuses, insisting there's no way he can act like a character from a romance manga. At that moment, everything finally starts making sense. So that's why she specifically asked him to wear a long-sleeved shirt and black pants. Still embarrassed, Hajime insists that those kinds of dramatic situations only happen in high school stories. Instead of giving up, Asami beams with excitement. She tells him he's giving up far too easily and declares that now is the perfect chance for both of them to reclaim their youth. Hajime can only stare at her, completely confused by what she means. Without missing a beat, Asami teases him even more, saying he's too much of a country bumpkin to begin with. The comment lands like a direct hit to Hajime's pride. Seeing his defeated expression, she laughs before pointing out that his naturally curly hair isn't helping his image. Then she reassures him that she knows exactly how to fix it. Before Hajime can react, she places a wig on his head, proudly announcing that even 4 eyes can look cool. Hajime never expected this kind of treatment. The next thing he knows, he's yelling because the wig feels like it's sticking to his scalp. Completely amused, Asami tells him not to close his eyes as she carefully works on his eyelashes. After finishing her makeover, she bursts into laughter before proudly admiring her work. According to her, Hajime now looks just like one of the handsome actors from a television drama. Meanwhile, Hajime can only wonder what on earth just happened to him. Clearly satisfied with the result, Asami quickly pulls out her phone and excitedly suggests they take a selfie together. Hajime, however, can't stop complaining that his face feels strange and insists he wants to wash everything off immediately. After finally washing his face, he lets out a quiet sigh. At this point, he's convinced this has gone far beyond some innocent high school romantic comedy. But Asami refuses to let the game end. She insists he can't leave yet because he still has to play the role of the cold, stuck-up guy from the manga. No matter how many times she asks, Hajime continues refusing, saying he simply can't play a character like that. Even while rejecting her, his face gradually turns bright red from embarrassment. As Hajime tries to leave the apartment, Asami suddenly reaches out and grabs his hand before he can go. With a gentle smile, she admits that those are actually the kinds of guys she likes the most. She explains that she finds it charming when someone gets flustered while sincerely trying their best. To her, that's exactly what youth is supposed to feel like. Hajime lowers his head with an awkward smile before quietly playing along for one last moment. Then he tells her that he's heading home. Before leaving, he reminds Asami not to drink too much. The following morning, Asami is suddenly awakened by the sound of her ringing phone. Still half asleep, she glances down at herself and immediately freezes. Staring at the clothes she's still wearing, she can't believe she actually went to bed dressed like that. Feeling completely embarrassed, she quickly gets ready for work and heads to the sink to wash her face. Everything seems normal, until she picks up her phone. The wallpaper on the screen makes her eyes go wide. It's a selfie of her and Hajime from the night before. She stands there in complete silence as the memories slowly come flooding back. A second later, her face turns bright red with embarrassment. Realizing exactly what happened, she can only think one thing. She got carried away again, and dragged Hajime right into another one of her drunken adventures.